The notice that shut the house down was typed before anybody knocked. It was already in the car, 40 minutes out. My daughter was asleep upstairs in that house. Her father had signed a paper swearing I handed her to a stranger and flew out. 11 parents were setting up folding chairs and didn't know any of it yet. I'd been home 19 days. And the one page that could have stopped it had spent a winter soaking in a shipping container behind an office that doesn't exist anymore. That's the question I carried around that whole spring. How do you prove you asked for a thing when the only place you're asking got written down is stuck to itself? 14 months before all that, I asked for one thing over a telephone. That call is the whole story. I'd turned 47 that year, with 25 years in the Coast Guard behind me, most of them spent over a sample bottle. I test water for a living. It's not a thing anyone leans in for. My husband's people had me down as a woman who fills out forms on a boat. I never corrected them, and at the time it felt like a small kindness. Tessa was 10 months old when the orders came through. Clint stood in the kitchen holding the letter and never once sat down. 13 months, it says here. About that. Give or take the transit. You could turn the whole thing down. I could do that, yes. But you're not going to. I didn't answer him. There wasn't an answer in the world that would have helped. He wanted his mother to take her. His mother worked swing shift at a warehouse in Gresham and slept through the middle of the day. She'd manage it fine, she raised 4. She'd be asleep by noon. So the baby naps while she sleeps. Tessa doesn't nap at noon. He let it go that night. He didn't let it go. 3 weeks of that. Then I drove down from Astoria on a Saturday and looked at a house on a street of houses, chain-link gate, rain-dark porch, a hand-lettered sign screwed into the siding. Mrs. Lorene Fenwick had run a licensed family childcare home out of that front room for 19 years. 6 children at a time and a hallway of coat hooks set at knee height. She met me at the door with flour on her wrist. You'd be the one from the Coast Guard. I am, and thank you for giving up a Saturday. They told me 13 months. 13, maybe 14, with the transit. Come see the room she'd be sleeping in. The room had one window, and the crib stood against the inside wall, away from the glass. She had thought about the glass. That mattered to me more than anything hanging on it. How many have gone this long with you? 2 of them, both babies when they came. And they came out all right. They came out fine. Go ask their mothers. What happens if she stops eating? Then I call you at whatever hour it is. It would be a strange hour where I'm going. I've called mothers at stranger hours than that. I stayed in that hallway longer than I needed to. Dread sat down with me right there in a warm house with nothing at all wrong yet. Her license was current. The state had been out in October. Everything in the public file was clean, and it had been clean for 19 years. I asked for another visit anyway. The district office was 2 rooms in a strip building off Sandy Boulevard. A woman picked up on the 4th ring. I'd like somebody to go out before I sign anything. There was an inspection in October. I know, and I'd still like one more. Is there a concern about the home? No concern at all. I'm going to be gone a long time. She was quiet for a second. Parents don't usually ask for this. I'm asking for it anyway. All right, I'll get somebody out there. Paper moved on her end. A pen clicked twice on the other side of the line. I'll put it in my book, she said. You'll get a call when it's done. Somebody went out 11 days later and the home passed. I signed the papers, kissed my daughter's head on that porch at 4:30 in the morning, and flew out of Portland with a duffel and a headache. That was February. I got back in April of the next year, in the rain, and Clint's truck wasn't in the driveway. The petition sat on the kitchen table, squared up, with the edge like he'd measured it. I went through the first page standing up. He wanted sole custody of a 2-year-old. Sole say over schools, doctors, everything. And in the part where a man is asked to explain himself, he had written this. The mother placed the child with an unlicensed stranger and left the state. Under that was a second filing. He had asked the state to shut Mrs. Fenwick's home down, and that was how he planned to prove it. I called the licensing office the next morning. I need a copy of the request I made before placement. Which request are we talking about? The extra visit February of last year. Typing. I have an October inspection. I have one in February. Does it say who asked for the February one? It doesn't say that anywhere. It has to say it somewhere. Ma'am, the file shows the visit happened. It doesn't show who wanted it. I asked her where a thing like that would be written down. In whoever's book went out that day, she said. But that office closed. The second morning, I drove to the state licensing office on the east side and asked to speak to somebody in charge. A supervisor came out with a lanyard and a paper cup and gave me 11 minutes. I want to know what happens next. Somebody goes out to the home. When does that happen? We don't tell you when. That's most of the point. And then there's a hearing. There's no hearing on a complaint like this one. I sat with that for a moment, and my hands went cold in my lap. So who decides? The inspector decides in the house that day. With what in front of her? Whatever she brings, and whatever she finds. What does she bring? She looked at me the way you look at somebody you're about to tell the truth to. The closure notice rides out in the folder with her. If she doesn't need it, it comes back here and goes in the shredder. It's typed before she leaves the lot. Every time. That's not personal, ma'am. That's just how the form works. And my part in it. You don't have a part, Mrs. Duval. You're not the licensee. That sentence followed me out to the parking garage and rode home with me on the highway. I was the mother. I wasn't the licensee. I wasn't the complainant. I wasn't a party to any of it. My daughter's whole day belonged to a piece of paper I had no right to sign. Clint had found the one door I had no standing to walk through. I went out to the house that afternoon. Mrs. Fenwick had the letter already folded twice, sitting on top of the microwave where the children couldn't reach it. It came Tuesday. And you didn't call? Because you'd been home 4 days. Call me anyway. Next time, call me. There isn't going to be a next time. There's this one. The front room had 6 children in it, and a bin of blocks tipped over on the rug. Tessa was under the window with a plastic cup and no interest in me whatsoever, which was its own kind of gut punch. She had spent 13 months learning that room. She knew where the crackers lived, she knew which stair creaked. Does she know your voice yet? She's getting there. Give it a month. I gave her 13. You gave her a safe one. That's the trade you made. I didn't cry in front of her. It was a near thing, and I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. Mrs. Fenwick had 19 years in that front room, no savings, and a mortgage on the house. If the state shut her down, 6 families lost their mornings and she lost the whole thing. She said it out loud without any drama in it. They'll take the license. They might not. Mrs. Duval, they came out for less than this and took a woman's license on Alberta Street. That woman had a finding against her. So will I if he keeps talking. 3 days later, Clint's lawyer called me at 10 in the morning. He had a warm voice, and he used my first name twice before he got to the offer, which was how I knew the offer was going to be ugly. There's a way to make all of this stop. Today. Go ahead. Your husband signs off on the complaint being withdrawn. And you agree he holds sole decision-making for Tessa. Schools, doctors, everything. Everything. It's a piece of paper, Rosemary. She still sees you. There it was. The house was never the target. The house was the crowbar. He filed against a woman with 6 kids in her front room to get a signature out of me. That's a hard way to put it. Give me a soft way. He didn't have one. He said something about how a mother who leaves for 13 months has a hill to climb, and he said it kindly, which made it worse. You have until they go out there. When do they go out? Nobody knows that. That's the point of it. Everybody kept saying that to me. That's the point of it. I had the phone against my ear in my own kitchen. By the back door sat the empty infant car seat. I'd bought it 2 weeks after I got home and still hadn't put it away. Anger came up in me clean and hot, and under it was something worse. which was fear. I'm not signing. Think about it overnight. I'll think about it. I'm still not signing. I put the phone down and stayed where I was a while. Then the letters went out to the other 10 families, and my daughter's name sat in the middle of each one. By the end of that week, 3 families had pulled their children out. I understood them. The letter used the word investigation twice on the first page. No parent wants that word stuck to the house where their kid eats lunch. One mother called Mrs. Fenwick to apologize. She cried on the phone for 6 minutes. Then she took her son anyway. The rain came in off the river that April and didn't quit for 11 days. The gutters over that porch ran the whole time. You could hear the downspout from inside the front room. It chattered along behind the noise of the children like something counting. By the 9th day, there were 2 children left in a room built for 6. Then the woman the court had appointed for Tessa came to my kitchen. She was polite, and she wasn't anybody's friend. She said so in the first minute, and I respected it. Her job was the child. Not me, not Clint, not that house on that block. She had a legal pad, and she filled 4 pages while I talked. How long were you gone? 13 months. And who chose the home? I did. Did your husband see it before you left? He wouldn't go. Wouldn't or didn't get asked? Wouldn't. I asked him twice. She wrote that down with no change in her face. I've sat in rooms with people who write down what you say. You learn fast that the writing means nothing until somebody else opens the notebook. He states the home is unlicensed. It's licensed. It's been licensed 19 years. He states you were told that and placed her anyway. He states a lot of things. Mrs. Duval, I'm writing down what you say, not how you feel about him. That landed. And it was fair. Then she asked the question that took the floor out from under me. Is there anything in writing that shows you checked the home yourself? I had the license number. I had the October inspection. I had the February one with a passing mark and a signature on it. None of it had my name anywhere. There was an inspection 2 weeks before I flew out. The file shows it. The file doesn't show why. I asked for it. Can you show me that? Not yet. She shut the pad and thanked me. She left her card on the table. I sat in that kitchen until the light went orange on the wall. It comes down to one thing when a family goes to war over a child. Everybody in the room has a story. The only story that holds is the one with a piece of paper under it. I test water for a living. A number's a number or it isn't. Nobody at my job has ever cared how sure I sounded. The next morning, I called the base legal office. By afternoon, I had a name. Mrs. Maybelle Krebs kept 2 rooms above a bakery in Astoria. She'd been doing family work for military people for 22 years. She was 68. She wore a cardigan with a pen through the buttonhole. She listened to the whole thing and didn't interrupt once. Then she asked one question. Who'd you talk to when you asked for the extra visit? A woman at the district office. Name? She never gave me one. What'd she say back to you? She said she'd put it in her book. Mrs. Krebs stopped writing. Say that again. She said I'll put it in my book. Her book? Not the file. Her book. She got up and went to the window. She stood with her back to me a while. Below us, somebody was pulling bread trays out of a van in the rain. Inspectors carry a route book, she said. It rides in the car. Every stop, every call, every reason for going. Is that a public file? It isn't. It's a working book. Nobody outside the district ever sees one. But it exists. If she wrote in it, it exists. Relief went through me so fast it made me lightheaded. It lasted about 90 seconds. Because Mrs. Krebs sat back down and pulled up the state directory. The district office off Sandy Boulevard had a line through it. That office shut a year ago, in March. Where do the books go when an office shuts? She kept looking at the screen. Somewhere, she said. That's the honest answer. Somewhere. Mrs. Krebs spent 9 days on the telephone and never once raised her voice at anybody. That's worth saying because I'd have raised mine by the second day. She had a yellow pad with the whole thing mapped out. Every morning she started at the top of the list again. She wasn't building a fight, she was building a file. This is what she put together. One call at a time. When the district office off Sandy Boulevard shut down, nobody boxed anything for an archive. The lease ended on a Friday. 2 men from facilities loaded the cabinets into a shipping container. It sat on the gravel behind the building. They latched it and drove away. The container stayed on that gravel through the summer. Nobody had a key that anyone could find. The windows of that building had brown paper in them. A church used the lot for overflow parking on Sundays. Then came the winter. A seam along the roof had split somewhere over the years. That winter, the rain came sideways for 2 straight months. Water ran down the inside wall and stood in the bottom for weeks. The carbon books took it in through their edges and swelled. Then in January, it froze and dried out. Carbon paper doesn't come apart after that. It welds. What came out of that container in February was a brick. They almost pitched it, Mrs. Krebs told me. Pitched a state file. It doesn't look like a file. It looks like a paving stone. Somebody at the State Archive in Salem got it instead. A woman down there runs a backlog list and hates throwing paper away. A conservator worked on it for 5 weeks. She steamed the block. She separated it a sheet at a time with a spatula. Each page dried flat under weights. Then she put the whole run back in order. She finished last month. She had never heard my name. She had no idea a petition existed. She was working a list. My page came out of that brick 2 weeks before Clint filed anything. I've thought about that woman more than I've thought about my husband. The rest of it Mrs. Krebs got from the transfer list, which is public. 22 district route books in from a container treated and flattened. The dates ran from that January through the August after it. February was in there. So we ask for it. We can't ask for it. It's a working book. It's in a state building. It's still not a public file. Nobody outside the district opens one of those. Then how does anybody ever see one? The inspector who wrote it opens it. That's the whole list. I ended up on the arm of her couch. My legs had gone strange on me. So a page with my name on it exists. That's right. It's flat, it's in order, and it's 100 miles off. And the only person who can open it is the inspector. That's also right. Mrs. Krebs took her glasses off and cleaned them on her cardigan. She always did that before the hard part. I'd learned to watch for it. There's one more thing on the transfer list. Go ahead. The books are listed by the inspector who carried them. And February. She turned the pad around and slid it across to me. The name on the line was Harriet Stobaugh. I didn't know it. It didn't mean a thing to me for about 4 seconds. Then, Mrs. Krebs said the rest. That's the woman the state is sending to shut the house down. The room got very quiet. Outside, the bakery van backed up and beeped twice and pulled away. The same woman. The same one. She's had that district 11 years. So she carries the book that clears me. She carries the book. She's also carrying the notice. I remember standing up and not knowing why I'd stood up. Dread doesn't work like ordinary fear. It had been sitting on me 3 weeks by then. It didn't get heavier when she said that. It got precise. It stopped being a weight and turned into a date on a calendar with a woman's name written under it. Will she open it for us? I don't know her. Somebody knows her. Mrs. Duval, I'll call her. I want you ready for what she says. Which is what? That she isn't coming out there for you. She called her the next morning at 8, with me sitting across the desk and the phone on speaker. Mrs. Harriet Stobaugh answered on the second ring and gave her last name and nothing else. I represent a parent with a child placed in a home in your district. Which home? Mrs. Krebs gave the address. That's an open complaint. I can't discuss it. I'm not asking you to discuss it. I'm asking about a book. There was a pause on that line that went on a long time. Go ahead. You carried the district route book in February of last year. I carried it for 11 years. There's an entry in it. A parent called and asked for an extra visit before placement. If a parent called, it's in there. Would you look? No. Just that. No in a voice with nothing behind it at all. May I ask, why not? Because I'm going out there on a complaint, and I don't go out with anybody's shopping list. I leaned toward the phone before I could stop myself. Mrs. Stobaugh, this is the mother. I know who you are. I made that call. I asked for that visit. People tell me things all day, Mrs. Duval. I'm telling you where it's written. Then it's written. That doesn't put me on your side of anything. She hung up first. She wasn't rude about it. She just finished the way you finish a call that has run out of business. Mrs. Krebs sat back and looked at the ceiling. Well, she said, that's a straight one. She wouldn't even look. She's not allowed to look for you. There's a difference and you'd better understand it. Explain it to me. She's not a witness. She's not a helper. She's the state, and the state came for that house. So Mrs. Krebs did the only thing left. She wrote one page and mailed it. No argument in it, no story, no mention of my husband. One paragraph naming the transfer list, the treated books, and the date. One sentence asking that the February book ride out to the visit with her. Then we waited, and nothing came back. 3 days of that. Then 5. People say waiting like it's a nothing word. Waiting is a job. You do it all day. You don't get anywhere. You're tired at the end of it anyway. Meanwhile, the thing that mattered most got worse. Clint took Tessa on a Saturday and brought her back Sunday night 4 hours late with no phone call. When I opened the door, she was asleep against his shoulder in a coat that wasn't hers. She's fine. You were due at 4. Traffic on the bridge. For 4 hours. Take her, Rosemary. I'm tired. I took my daughter out of his arms in my own doorway, and shame came over me hot and stupid, because for a second, I'd been afraid to say anything at all. That's what these things do to you. He'd found the exact place where I would go quiet. Monday morning, I called the woman the court had appointed and told her about the 4 hours. She thanked me, and I could hear her pen. Did you speak to him about it? I asked where they'd been. And he said the bridge. She wrote it down. She didn't say whether it helped, and I've stopped expecting people like her to say. On Wednesday, the state sent Mrs. Fenwick a second letter. It said a visit related to the open complaint would occur within 14 days. It said the visit would be unannounced. It said she was to make no changes to the home in the meantime. I stood in that front room and did the arithmetic in my head. Then I looked at the calendar on her refrigerator. A strawberry magnet held it up. The second Thursday of every month was circled in green. What's the green one? Parent night. Every family comes, we do the year's schedule in the fee sheet. How many people are in this room for that? 11 families, near enough. We set out the folding chairs, and it's inside the 14 days. She looked at the calendar, and then she looked at me. Yes, she said. It's inside the 14 days. The second Thursday came 8 days later. Sleep didn't come much that week. Not really. I ran the shift schedule twice, trying to swap off that Thursday. I got nowhere. A small boat station in April doesn't care what's happening in your life. That morning, a fuel barge went sideways on a mooring line and my shift ran 4 hours over. Water samples, a spill boom, and a long call with somebody's insurance carrier. I got off the pier at 5:40 in the afternoon. Parent night started at 6:30 in a city 2 hours away. There was no going home to change. There wasn't even coffee. So I drove down the highway in the rain in my duty uniform. The heater ran on my knees. My daughter's empty seat was strapped in behind me. I got to that block at 4 minutes past 7. The porch light was on. Every window in that front room was lit. I could hear it from the sidewalk. 11 families make a lot of noise in a house that size. There were folding chairs in 2 rows. A coffee urn stood on a card table beside a hand-lettered fee sheet. Somebody had brought a sheet cake. Children were upstairs with a teenager and a movie. My daughter was one of them. I didn't go up to see her. If I'd gone up those stairs, I wouldn't have come back down. Clint was in the second row. He had on the gray jacket he wore for things that matter to him. His lawyer sat beside him with a briefcase flat across his knees. 2 seats over, the woman the court appointed for Tessa had her pad open already. She was writing before anything happened. That's the whole job. Write it down and let somebody else decide what it meant. I stood just inside the doorway, with my back near the coat hooks. Sit down, Mrs. Duval. I'll stand. You're soaked through. I'll stand. Nobody offered twice. Rosemary. Clint. You couldn't change. No. It's a little much for a fee meeting. I didn't answer that. A man who wants a reaction will keep talking if you give him nothing. Mrs. Fenwick started the meeting the way she'd started 19 of them. The year's calendar, the holiday weeks, a word about the flu going around. Then Clint stood up in the second row with a paper in his hand. Silence came down over that room fast. He told them there was an open complaint on the home. He told them a state inspector would be out. He said he'd filed it himself. He'd filed it for their children as much as his own. A father in a work jacket put his coffee down. Who filed it? I did. You've got a kid here. She's upstairs right now. What does it say? That an unlicensed woman had a baby in this house for 14 months. Lorraine's licensed. It's on the wall behind you. Then the state will confirm it and we'll all sleep better. He was good at it. He'd always been good in a room. He could sound like the reasonable one while he took the floor out from under you. Then he turned and looked at me for the first time. My wife made the arrangement by herself before she left the country. That's true. You'd agree you were gone. I was gone 13 months. And you never saw a state inspection with your own eyes. I never did. The court's woman wrote for a while. His lawyer put a hand on his arm to sit him down, and he sat. 11 families looked at the floor. That was the low point of my life. And I'm counting some hard nights at sea in that. I stood in a doorway in a wet uniform while my husband explained my daughter to strangers, and I couldn't think of one true thing to say that wouldn't have sounded like a woman defending herself. Then, somebody knocked on the front door, twice, hard. Mrs. Fenwick opened it and stepped back. A woman came in out of the rain in a plastic hood. She was about 60. She had a canvas bag over her shoulder and a plain brown folder in her hand. She wiped her shoes on the mat before she came any further. That's the kind of thing I noticed later and not then. She looked around that front room at 11 families and a sheet cake. I'm from the state, she said. My name is Harriet Stobaugh. Nobody moved. I'm here on a complaint about this home. Tonight. Everybody here should understand what that means. She set the brown folder down on the arm of a chair. There's a closure notice inside this folder. It came out of the office with me. Nobody said a word for a second or two. Then everybody spoke at once. Mrs. Stobaugh let it run and waited it out. How does this work? I walk the house. I look at what I look at. And then you decide tonight. Then I decide. Tonight. With all of us sitting here, you can stay or you can go home. It's your evening. Not one family left. I still think about that. She walked the house for 20 minutes. The kitchen and the gate at the stairs. The smoke alarms. The wall by the door where the license hangs in a cracked frame. She wrote on a form the whole time and let nobody follow her. When she came back, she stood by the coffee urn and looked at her folder. Who filed the complaint? Clint stood up. I did. You're the father. I am. Your complaint says the child was left with an unlicensed person. That's right. That part is answered. This home has been licensed 19 years, and the license on that wall is current. There's more to it than the paper. There usually is. Say the rest. He said the rest. He said his wife had made the arrangement alone. He said she'd never seen an inspection with her own eyes. He said she'd been out of the country for over a year and had taken somebody's word for a stranger's house. His lawyer nodded along, and the court's woman wrote it all down. Mrs. Stobaugh listened without one thing moving in her face. So your position is that the mother didn't check. My position is that she couldn't have. All right. Then she bent down and opened the canvas bag. This next part I've gone over more times than is good for a person. She took out a stiff gray folder with a flap and a string. Out of it she slid a single sheet in a clear sleeve. The paper was pale and buckled along one edge. You could see where somebody had pressed it flat. It had almost stopped fighting. She looked for a chair, and every chair had a person in it. Then she took a folding chair from against the wall. She opened it and laid the sleeve flat on the seat. There's a thing you should know about Paige. What is it? It's mine. It's my route book from that February. That's not in the file. No, sir. It's never in the file. It's the book that rides in my car. She put 2 fingers on the sleeve to hold it down. That book sat in a container behind an office for a year. It took on water. The pages dried stuck together in a block. Then how is it in front of us? A woman in Salem spent 5 weeks getting them apart. She finished last month. She's never heard of any of you. Clint's lawyer stood halfway up. We'd want notice before anything like this. You're not getting any. I'm not filing this, and I'm not entering it anywhere. I came to say one line out loud and nothing else. Nobody breathed. Somebody's chair creaked and stopped. She didn't pick the page up. She bent over it, put her finger on the line, and gave it to that room in the flattest voice you ever heard. Extra visit before placement requested by the parent, Lieutenant Commander Rosemary Duval, United States Coast Guard. Silence. Not the polite kind. The kind that comes down after a thing lands, and everybody in the room does the arithmetic at the same time. Mrs. Stobaugh straightened up. That's the whole line. I'm not saying anything about custody, and I'm not on anybody's side in this house. She looked at Clint then. She wasn't unkind about it. Your complaint says she didn't check. My book says she called and asked me to go back out. She never told me she called. That's between the two of you. I only know what I wrote down that day. The court's woman had stopped writing somewhere in the middle of it. Now she started again fast. The father in the work jacket said one word under his breath. His wife took hold of his sleeve. I stood in that doorway and my eyes filled, and I didn't put my hand up to my face because that room was already watching me, and I didn't want it to be a performance. 13 months of other people's opinions came off me right there. That's the only way I know how to put it. Mrs. Stobaugh took the closure notice out of the brown folder. She folded it once. It went into her bag, unsigned. This home passes. I'll have the letter out Monday. She thanked Mrs. Fenwick for her time and went out into the rain. Then the courtswoman shut her pad and turned around in her chair to face my husband. She asked him one question in front of everybody in the voice you'd use about the weather. Did you know she'd asked for that visit? No. Did you ever ask her? His eyes went down to his shoes. Mrs. Duval was overseas. That isn't what I asked you. Nothing. He didn't have one word for it. His lawyers stood and said they'd take it up another time. The two of them went out past the coffee urn and the sheet cake. Neither one stopped to talk to anybody. The room stayed sitting a minute, the way people do after a service. Then a woman I'd never spoken to came over with a paper plate and put a slice of cake in my hand. My boy's been in this house 4 years. I didn't know that. Sit down. You've been standing all night. I sat down. The letter came Monday the way she said it would. Mrs. Fenwick called me before she'd finished the first page. 2 paragraphs. What does it say? Unfounded. The license stands. No findings. Say the last line. There isn't one. 2 paragraphs and a signature. 19 years and they give you 2 paragraphs. 2 is plenty. 2 is the good number. 3 of the families that pulled out came back inside the month. One didn't. Mrs. Fenwick never said a word about that one, and I never asked. The petition took longer because paper always does. His lawyer withdrew the part about sole decision-making in June. The rest got worked out on a Tuesday afternoon in an office with bad chairs. He kept his weekends. He sees his daughter. I didn't fight that, and nobody asked me to. People have asked why I didn't push harder, since I had the room and I had the sympathy. Because a 5-year-old is going to ask about her father someday. I'd rather answer that question than win something. That's the whole reason. There isn't a better one. A week after the file was closed, I sat down on my own back steps in duty uniform and didn't go inside. The rain had quit for an hour. The concrete was still dark with it. I'd carried the infant car seat out that morning to give to a family on the next block. It was sitting on the step below me. I hadn't put it in the trunk yet. I had one hand through the carry handle, the way you hold one with a baby in it. The buckle was done up around nothing. Tessa was asleep inside the house, with the window open an inch. I could hear her through it if I stopped moving. I sat there with my hand through that handle a long time. I didn't feel like somebody who was finished. I felt like somebody waiting on the next piece of paper. That took another year to leave me. I sent a letter to the State Archive that fall. I asked them to pass it to the woman who does the treatments. No answer ever came, and I didn't need one. She'd already done the thing that mattered. She did it months before anybody knew there'd be a use for it in a room with a spatula and a stack of weights. 3 years on now. Tessa is 5. She rides in a booster seat and argues about which side of the car is hers. The infant seat went to that family down the block, and then on to another one after that. She asked me last spring what I do at work. I test the water. What for? To see if it's clean. Is it clean? Sometimes. That's why we check. She thought about it for about 4 seconds. Then she went back to her crackers. She doesn't know any of this yet. Someday she will, and when she asks, I'll tell her the truth, which is that a stranger she'll never meet kept a book in her car and wrote down why she went somewhere. Nobody in that front room was going to take my word for it. That isn't cruelty. That's how a room full of worried parents works. And I've stopped being angry about it. What saved my daughter's mornings wasn't my service. It wasn't my temper. It wasn't a speech in a doorway. It was one woman writing down a small, true thing on a day when it didn't matter yet. Be that person if the chance comes to you. Write it down. Somewhere down the line, somebody will be standing in a doorway, needing exactly that line, and they won't know your name to thank you. If this one sat with you, hand it to a woman who's being described by people who weren't in the room. Subscribe, and I'll meet you at the next one.